Today we're going to learn about the lesson planning under the new normal. We are actually giving out this PowerPoint presentation to everyone. So all you have to do in order to get this PowerPoint presentation is to go ahead and watch the whole video so that you will know how to use the PowerPoint presentation. At the same time, don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and go ahead and share this to your friends. All right, so let's start. So lesson planning under the new normal. So all this discussion today will actually be based from the memorandum released by Undersecretary of the Curriculum and Instruction, Undersecretary Diosdado M. San Antonio. Right. So we will be covering the following contents. First, the general guidelines in lesson planning under the new normal. Number 2, procedures to be followed in writing your home weekly learning plan, which is now the alternative for the lesson plan if you are implementing distance learning. The parts of the home weekly learning plan, and then the guidelines in the implementation of the home weekly learning plan. Right, so let's go ahead now, starting with the general guidelines. So the basis of these guidelines is still DepED Order 42, series of 2016, which actually discusses the different guidelines and stipulations regarding how to prepare our lesson plan. So this issuance recognizes that the necessity of lesson planning as a critical part of the teaching learning process. So we all recognize that lesson planning is indeed very important for all of us teachers in the teaching learning process. So even if it's in the new normal right now, there might be revisions. However, we should do lesson planning still. So LPs should answer the following questions. First, what should be taught? So what are the topics? What should be the competencies being involved, and etc. And the next question is, how should it be taught? So this time the question is how you're going to go about the teaching learning process. And C, how should learning be assessed? Right, so let's go ahead now and proceed. How should the weekly learning plan be developed? So these are the specific steps that has been detailed by the issuance of Undersecretary San Antonio. The procedures. First of all, the teacher will refer to the most essential learning competencies. So as we all know, our competencies were being decongested, and there are from 15,000 competencies, there are now only 5,000 competencies left. So we're going to refer to the most essential learning competencies depending on the subject that we're referring to. Number 2, gather the self-learning modules together with other learning materials needed for self-paced learning mode. All the materials for that week should be gathered so that it will be used as reference of our home weekly learning plan. Then use the SLM or the self-learning modules gathered as reference. So consider the learning competencies, the key concepts, the learning tasks, and the formative assessment. So all these things should be considered so that you will have a holistic reflection and you will be able to craft a home weekly learning plan that considers all the modules, the self-learning modules as a whole. We are actually considering how this would affect the child's week learning experience. So that is why you need to gather all these materials in order for you to have a good grasp of what will happen to the child's learning experience for that week. Number 4, subject area teachers will collaborate to come up with a set of weekly home learning plan for one entire quarter grading period by integrating all subjects in one learning plan. So take note that the home weekly learning plan is actually a weekly plan. So it's easier in a sense that you don't have to prepare for each period. You only have to prepare for the whole week. So teachers in the first place, when they are crafting the home weekly learning plan, can collaborate and come up with a set of a home weekly learning plan for one entire quarter or grading period. So it's easier now compared to before. So teachers should be guided with a long-term vision of what they want their learners to master and achieve. So the idea here is to put the end in mind. So that should be your goal here. So what do you want the child to learn for that week? What do you want the child to really capture in terms of learning, and what are the key concepts that you want the child to learn? So these are the things you need to take note. So, put the end in mind. Number 6, teachers should adopt strategies that respect the unique context and diversity of learners in terms of their readiness, learning interest, and learning profile. So, in short, we need to use differentiated instruction if possible. So, considering this is a plan, it is subject for change in a way that depending on the child that you are dealing with, you need to adjust how you implement strategies based on their context and diversity. So this is very important because plans are created, however you can adjust based on how you see the child is reacting to what you are giving to him or her, right? So I think that's very important right now in the context of the pandemic, that we need to always adjust our instruction based on the learners that we have. So since we are not really doing the face-to-face interaction, we can do this by constantly monitoring our learners, every now and then calling them, communicating with them through text, in other means of communication. So, at this time of pandemic, we are like call center agents if we're implementing distance learning, because we would want to really monitor the learners' progress in terms of their learning, even if we are far away. So that is one of the principles of distance learning we have discussed. Right, so number 7, teachers should strike a balance between academic rigor and social-emotional aspect of learning. Provide flexibility for learners to manage their own learning. So I think this is very important, no? When we talk about in the context of the pandemic, we need to adjust our instruction based on the context of the learners, and much more than that, we need to be sensitive to their situation. So that is the reason why Undersecretary San Antonio emphasized this in his memorandum, that teachers should strike a balance between academic rigor. We all know that we want the learners to learn, but not too much to the point that they will lose their mind. And remember, we are under a pandemic, and most of them are encountering socio-emotional problems, problems with finances. Some of us are homeless, some of us are jobless. So we need to consider all these things. Teachers should be the first one to provide socio-emotional first aid to our learners, not trauma. Okay, so that is why in our previous videos, we always emphasize this. If we were to choose Bloom's taxonomy or Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we need to prioritize Maslow's hierarchy of needs in times like this. All right. So what are the parts of the weekly home learning plan? So this is a very important question that we need to address. Later on, I will show you a template and provide all of you a template. And for those who are still watching right now, I'll be sending to you 3 files. Since you will be requesting this one in the video description, I'll be sending to you this PowerPoint presentation, the memorandum, and at the same time the template for the home weekly learning plan. So all you have to do is to subscribe, like the channel, and at the same time share this to your friends so that we'll be able to help more teachers adjust to the new normal. So what are the parts of the weekly learning plan? So the learning area, the subjects prescribed to be taken by the teachers, by the learners in a particular grade level or key stage. So that's the learning area. That includes the subjects. Okay. The learning tasks are formative learning opportunities created for learners to enhance their understanding of the content, which prompt them to engage, intensify the subject matter. So learning task is actually what the things they need to do, right? So what are the things that they need to perform, etc. Okay. Next is learning competencies. So this refers to knowledge, understanding, skills, and attitude that learners need to demonstrate in every lesson or learning activity. So learning competencies refers to the knowledge, understanding, skills, and attitude that learners need to demonstrate in every lesson or learning activity. So competencies are different with skills in a sense that competencies have an exact standard of level of performance. So skill is a skill, but When you say competencies, this has a specific standard that the learner has to accomplish in order for us to know if the child is competent in terms of the skill that we're referring to. So learning competencies are now streamlined, meaning they are only a few of them identified as the most learning competencies, and these are what we call the MELC or the MILC, right? So mode of delivery refers to the method of submission of learning outputs to include written work. Okay, so these are actually the method that learners actually do in submitting their output. So it could be written in a form of a written work, in a soft copy, etc. So weekly home learning plan guidelines. So let's look at this. The home learning plan should be communicated to the parents. So this is very important. This is very important, especially if we have parents who are para teachers at the same time. And since parents are the ones who will be communicating and monitoring the learners in their respective homes, so together with the teacher, of course, so the means of communication could be in a form of hard copies during the school orientation. So the school should conduct a comprehensive and clear orientation to the parents as to the contents, purpose, and use of the home weekly learning plan. So now more than ever, strong communication between parents and para teachers should be enhanced, and the school should actually conduct a very comprehensive and clear orientation regarding the home weekly learning plan. And that will include, the child protection policy, what are the things that they need to take note, do not hurt their child if they don't really understand the lesson that well, communicate, means of communication with the teachers, communicating the difficulties of the learner, and there are many things that the parents should actually take note. So that is the reason why the school should initiate a school-based orientation that will help the parents have a good grasp of what will happen regarding the learning experience of the child for that school year, and also for that particular week in a sense. Aid to teachers, parents, and learners. So this is considered an aid in a sense that it provides teachers, parents, and learners the ability to track the most suitable and feasible learning modality for the learner. So at the same time, we are still adjusting and we're looking for means to really allow the child to learn even if we are under this pandemic. So we need to really analyze the learner's learning experience and at the same time adjust based on what we see. So at the same time, we are also reminding the learners that learning is actually not just the responsibility of the parents, the teachers, and all those who are around him, but it is his or her responsibility at the same time. So I think this is the main goal of learning. We want the learners to become independent learners eventually. So the idea here is we want to create a lifelong learner out from the learners that we have right now. So if we transform them into an individual who is capable of monitoring his own learning, who has the ability to reflect on the best method that he or she can learn, then we can create a lifelong learner out from our students and pupils. Weekly home learning plan for distance learning, DLP or DLL for face-to-face learning. So for exceptional cases, those who will be implementing face-to-face learning will have to utilize the DLP or the detailed lesson plan, the detailed lesson log as prescribed by DepED Order 42 series of 2016. So it should be noted that if you are a teacher and if you are implementing face-to-face, you are not to do the home weekly learning week home learning plan, but you are to do the DLL or the DLP as mandated by and prescribed by DepED Order 42 series of 2016. Weekly home learning plan shall be adjusted to suit the level of the child. So this is very important that we need to take into context the child's learning experience. So tasks given to the child should be adjusted until they are prepared to handle norm learning tasks. So take note, if there are learners who have problems in their progress, then all we have to do is to create an individual monitoring plan for that child. And at the same time, we need to adjust the home weekly learning plan for our learner. Okay, so until such time that he'll be able to do the norm learning task. So this is DepEd's way to ensuring that the learners are learning even if they are having difficulties. Okay, so in addition to this, individual learning monitoring plan shall be used to monitor students who need intervention strategies. So we will be creating another presentation regarding the individual learning monitoring plan so that we'll be able to discuss it in detail. We will now proceed to the different parts of the weekly home learning plan. So this is a sample that we see here. This is actually attached to the PowerPoint that I'll be sending to all of you. This is our way of helping the teachers out there and the school heads out there who will be orienting their teachers regarding the weekly home learning plan. So we see here, this is sample home weekly learning plan, and then we see that in the first column there's a day and then the time, and then the learning area. So we see that the first part are merged together because 8 to 9 will be wake up, make up your bed, eat breakfast, and get ready for an awesome day. So 9 to 9:30 have a short exercise or meditation, bonding with family. So the class formally will start at 9:30 to 11:30. That is the first session, and that will be around 2 hours. So the first subject is mathematics. So we see the learning area there. And then the learning competencies illustrates well-defined sets of subsets, universal sets, null set. So this is the learning competency, and this is the target learning competency for that week. Now consider the following sets. So these are the learning tasks here. Okay, so it's very specific in a sense that will allow us to have a good grasp of what will happen to the child's learning experience during that time. And then what is the mode of delivery? So send the outputs to Google Classroom account. It is in the form of soft copy. So it's a very specific instruction as to how the child will submit their output. Okay. Then we have okay, so we'll proceed to the next one. Okay. So the second session after that is 1 to 3. You see the subject is Filipino. And then he still specified the learning competency and have a detailed discussion regarding what will be the learning task of the child and then how they will submit their output. So really, if we try to see it, it's really narrowed down to the gist of what DepEd Order 42 series of 2016 has actually prescribed. So we see the learning competency, we see what are the learning tasks, we see how their outputs will be submitted. In a sense, this is how learning will be assessed. So we will be assessing them based on the outputs they will be submitting to us, since we are implementing distance learning in this sense. Okay, so on the next day, Tuesday, so we see there 9:30 to 11:30. So basically, there will be 2 subjects per day. Okay, this is the latest issuance. There has been rumors regarding extending the time for each day. However, let me just tell everyone that there are no issuance regarding this one, but it's just a statement of one of our undersecretaries. So we need to wait for really a real issuance. So as of now, this issuance has not been rescinded or repealed. So this holds true. And considering the current calendar that we're implementing, we see that it's still 200 days. So from October 5 to June 16. So that's exactly 200 days. So it's, for me, my own opinion is that it's most unlikely that the class hours will be extended because it has met the minimum requirements as per the Republic Act that they are basing the extension of the classes. So we see that it's 200 days. So it's most probably that the contact time will not increase. So it's still 4 hours a day, and in this sense, the schedule still holds true. So 9:30 to 11:30, Tuesday this time. So we see that the subject is science. So there will be 2 subjects per day and same pattern here. We see the learning competency, which is already milk, or most essential learning competency they have identified for that week. And then we see that there's a learning task, a very detailed learning task, and then how they are going to send their outputs. And then in the afternoon is ESP naman. Okay, so same pattern, right? So thank you so much for watching this one. Again, all you have to do is to look at the description box, and I'll be here. We also see the link that you will go to in order for you to receive this PowerPoint presentation, and also giving you a bonus template regarding the form that we're talking about here, and also at the same time the memorandum issued by our Undersecretary San Antonio. So thank you so much